Hi, folks. This is Kevin again, and I'm back to talk just a little bit more about the work that we're going to do in this Vincent book, Django for Beginners. And over the weekend, I put together a tutorial where I walked you through the work that he has in chapter one, and I kind of got you started, and I told you that your assignment was going to be uh, chapter 5, and I invited you to take a crack at chapters 2, 3, and 4. And one issue that I missed was uh, do we want to deploy these applications to some kind of a common server platform? And I really wasn't thinking of that because if Vincent doesn't really talk about this in chapter one, and if we go all the way up to chapter five, he doesn't really talk about this here either. And the reason is, um, uh, whereas deploying is really important if you want to put your Django app into production. Um, Deploying is a little different in each on each of the platforms on which you could deploy, and it's very fiddly. Okay, so there's a lot of details you have to get right, and so I when when I have people deploy in our course, I have them deploy at the end of the course. Okay. What a lot of instructors like to do is to have you deploy early because it's kind of exciting to build something that you can access over the web, and you can give the URL to people and they would be able to access it too. So I thought it would be enough to just kind of let this go. Um, for instance, in our course, we're not going to actually deploy until we get to week 14, I think. Yeah, in week 14, the deployment assignment is due. Okay, so we're going to do that once. We're going to do it in week 14. We're not going to do a deployment for our final project because if you're going to deploy your final project and you want to put it into production, well, then you're going to have to arrange for some account somewhere. Um, and again, the details of how you deploy are going to be a little different depending upon the provider that you choose for deployment. Okay. Um, so this isn't happening until mid to late April. All right. But what I forgot when I put together the tutorial is that uh, Vincent has you deploying the tutorial that you do in chapter 4. Okay, and I don't, yeah, and the one you do in chapter 3. Okay, and so am I intending for you to deploy chapter 3 and chapter 4? I'm not. Okay, it's kind of fun to do, but again, there's lots of details. It's very fiddly, and you can really get bogged down. Okay. Now, here's another problem why I'm kind of staying away from the deployment in the Vincent book for right now. He recommends a provider called Heroku. And Heroku for a long time was a great place. Okay. They had free accounts. Okay. For our hosting provider, we will use Heroku because it's free for small projects. That's no longer true. Okay, so if we pull over our browser and we look at Heroku pricing, okay, you can see that now they don't have free accounts. Heroku got sold within the last year to people who want to make more money. That's how they borrowed the money to buy it. Okay, and they've turned off all the free accounts. So I had a free account there that I'd had for a long time, since maybe 2014, and they've turned it off. Okay, they wanted me to convert it to a paying account, and then I didn't. And then they said, well, we're going to turn it off, and I didn't change it, and they said we turned it off. Okay, so um, one reason we're not going to Heroku is that it's not the deal that it once was. So why hasn't Vincent updated his electronic book and chosen a different provider to recommend? Um, I follow Vincent on Twitter and a couple other places, and uh, he's working on the next thing that he's going to recommend. Okay, and then of course he has to update the books. I think I mentioned before, because there are so many implementation specific details in Django and in this kind of uh, training material, you're forever having to maintain it. And this is a good example of that. Okay, so I never intended you to deploy to Heroku. I gave up on them a long time ago, uh, even before they decided that they wanted to charge. So, where are we going to go? Well, again, if I pull that page back from is that week 14? You're going to be going to Python Anywhere. Okay. So I've been using Python Anywhere really since I began teaching this course about 5 years ago. Um, Python Anywhere does have free accounts for people who are learning and who don't want to get a lot of services from them. And the other thing that they have is they have the capability for students to connect themselves with their instructors such that instructors can see the student code that gets deployed. And that, of course, is something that we're going to want to do when we grade your deployment. Okay, so if we go to plans and pricing for Python Anywhere, there is a beginner account, beginner, free. That's what we're going to be using. Okay. Now, if you absolutely have to deploy ahead of time because, well, you know how you just get crazy and you just have to do something? Well, try Python Anywhere. Okay. And if I don't have my tutorial stuff up yet, like I don't have the stuff up yet for week 14 because every time I teach this course, I go back and test the deployment. Little things change and they break. Okay. But there is a tutorial page about how to deploy a Django app at Python Anywhere, somewhere on the Python Anywhere site. And usually I give you a link to that and I do a video tutorial. So if you absolutely have to satisfy your craving to go deploy, I recommend that you do it at Python Anywhere because it's going to pay off when we get to week 14 and we're going to want to deploy EZU there. Another thing that I wanted to show you was EZU deployed at Python Anywhere. So here, when you go to EZU, you deploy it, and here's EZU deployed at Python Anywhere. We each get an account that has our user ID as as a subdomain. So what I asked you to do is to use your user ID from the university as your user ID of Python Anywhere if it's still available. Um, and then once you properly deploy and install and start your server, then when you go to this address, well, then that's where you are. So let's see, I'm on about right now, but if I back up, that'll take me to the about page. Oh, I forward to the about page. Good. And I'm able to log in and do everything that I demoed to you when I went through EasyU in class. Okay, so I apologize for having forgotten to talk about deployment. I know that people get excited about the ability to deploy. Um, I'm not going to keep you from trying if it turns out that's a thing that's important to you and you've got time to work on it. But here's how to apply yourself to that problem. Once you deploy these apps, um, they don't really behave any differently um, uh, in your browser um, when you're working on a production deployment server than when you're working on your own machine on the development server. Uh, the URL up in your address bar looks a little different, okay? But other than that, the behavior should be exactly the same. All right, I'm not going to give this really any more airtime. I forgot to include this in the other tutorials. I apologize for that. And I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.